I had this exact job title back in 2022, but we ended up dropping this title and switching to just data engineer a year later because no one really understood what it meant. And flash forward to now, 2026, and suddenly this has become somehow the hottest job in tech. Let's start with a simple definition of what a forward deployed engineer is. I think the title of it is somewhat a bit ambiguous, and in my opinion doesn't necessarily make it very obvious what the actual role is. And I think the best way to represent it is that it's a data role, but at the intersection of three different parts. So you have engineering in a classic way, products, and ops, because it's all about shipping code post-production, so not on the main product, but on a setup dedicated to one client only. Let me give you an example, maybe to be a bit more clear, but for instance, let's say you work at a SaaS, but a SaaS that for each client needs a bit of customization and specific setup. If you're an FTE, then you're gonna sit not on building the initial product, but on bringing this last step for the client to use the product of customizing, developing specific solutions, solving any specific bug, and then also staying on a bit with the client as they onboard, making sure everything's working, and you're sort of like the reference that they can reach out to when you have an issue. So it's all about balancing two aspects, which is communication and general client management on one side, so being able to understand what their needs are, and also the technical ability to build those needs. And also there's a lot of ownership in that role because you are somewhat responsible for that client liking the product. Okay, now that we have an agreed on definition of what it is, let's actually give a bit of background, because sometimes titles pop a bit out of nowhere, but this specific title has a very specific history and it's intimately linked with a specific company as well. Palantir actually coined it and have been recruiting FDEs for many, many years. And if you don't know them, they're basically a consultancy, but that works a lot with government and the defense area. And they have a bunch of in-house solutions that one team is in charge of developing of any kind of needs. And then they have FDEs where their role is on a specific project with, let's say, a specific government or specific branch of government, selecting which in-house tools will make things, and also building the customizations and some specific workflows based on those in-house tools. And so they have to sit with the client and actually understand a lot of the context, because those are often fairly complex topics to understand, and each government and government branch have their own needs, not only country to a country, but actually even at the scale of one country. And so you really need someone that is able to understand the client to also be in charge of the technical development of the softwares. And actually to this day, I think Palantir is probably still the leading recruiters in terms of FDEs, because obviously they're a big company, but also their business model basically relies on that role a lot. So before I give my opinion, let me give you a bit of a background on my story and my relationship with this title. So fresh out of school, I wanted to be a data engineer. I knew that was the specific branch of data I was interested in becoming. And I ended up working for a startup where initially I applied to be a data engineer, but slowly I realized that the role wasn't exactly data engineer, and it wasn't even called data engineer within the company. We were actually called FDEs because our role was very similar to that. We were also working somewhat closely to governments, and so a big part of the classic data engineer roles didn't really apply to us. Obviously, we still worked with data, also doing modeling, handling pipelines, but a big part of it was, since every client basically had a specific setup, we had to work with specific clients. Like each FDE basically had specific clients that they were linked to, so that we would know the context behind their data, understand their specific needs, and we would also communicate directly with them a lot as well. And we even belonged outside of the engineering team. We were mostly related to the client success team because we worked sort of as dedicated engineers for the clients and not really directly for the product. But back then, that title outside of Palantir didn't really exist. And so honestly, we ended up dropping it because it's just so confusing, and many people would even sort of mix up the letters, and it just wasn't working. So we simplified it, went back to data engineer. That was at the time very classic role. Everyone understood sort of what it meant. And so for a few years, I sort of thought, well, that was a random story. I'll never hear of that title again. And obviously now FDE is a big topic in tech. A lot of people are becoming that, or I guess transforming their previous roles into that, because a lot of people are hiring for those roles. And I think, again, a big part of that, like everything recently in tech, is the rise of AI and AI as a product. So many companies now basically sell you AI solutions. And I think because AI is sort of like, especially LLMs are sort of like a initially good tool, but then you need a lot of like tweaking to get it to work for your specific use case. I'm sure you also experienced that whenever you use the like classic ChatGPT and Claude models as well. And also because code is produced way easily than before, the value of a data engineer doesn't really rely anymore, for instance, on producing code, but being able to orchestrate everything. And the same way, a lot of technical people, their value used to be their ability to write code. Now it's about sometimes translating needs of one client into the code, and they don't have to write the code themselves, but sort of being the bridge between those two entities that sometimes don't really understand each other. And also because with like the speed of AI and the velocity of development right now, it allows for a lot more customization, but that still means you need some kind of technical person to handle this customization and making sure everything is done right. All of this to say that if we look at the numbers, it's a bit crazy. The amount or like percentage of job posting that are FDEs titled are up 800%, which is, I mean, crazy. Basically means before only Palantir was hiring them, and now everyone is. Even like non-AI native companies are doing it, like the consultancy, EY, etc. Also, obviously, Amazon and all the giants of the big techs, and even companies like Adobe that are not like purely tech company, but like just software company, are also starting to hire those. So there is a real demand for that. I think my only like against opinion is that to me it's more of a rebranding of skill, and like I said in the start of this part, it's because the skill itself of coding is sort of not enough to get by now. You really need this ability to not only understand code and sort of guide all of the coding agents that we have that are very, very efficient at writing the code, but you still need to understand what is like under the hood, basically. But you also need to be able to communicate that to others and understand their needs and sort of translate that into technical terms for AIs to implement. And so at the end of the day, it's just a rebranding, not only on the applicant's side, because people are rebranding previous experience in a way that makes it show that they have the skills required of an FDE, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's what the tech world is. It's constantly moving, new titles pop up, our titles sort of die down, and that's completely fine. And same thing on the company, it's also right now a great way to sort of target people that are really connected to the tech ecosystems and software engineers that are, you know, really in tune with the market, and usually those can be quite high performing, or at least regarded as such by big companies. So it's also sort of a way to maybe sort a bit through your applicants and make sure people that are, you know, a bit up to date with the current market are applying to your position. So the skill set behind it is real and tangible. I'm not denying that. I'm just wondering what will the next title be and how long this title will actually last, because I think that would be my only worry, is if you're interested in becoming an FD, make sure you have skills that are somewhat transferable to other titles in the future and don't become too specific on the like deployment part, because we never fully know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, look at how AI changed the market the last 2 years. And so it might get absorbed by other stronger roles, because for instance, I still think it can be fairly close to a data engineer role. So make sure that you're not staying only too close to the FDE role, where by the time it gets absorbed by other titles, you have no skill set to show for it. In case, basically the same thing that happened within the company I was working at, where the title just didn't end up working out and we got rid of it. We still kept the skills that went behind it, and I just, for instance, used to put it as data engineer on my CV, and that's just simple rebranding, so nothing to be scared of. And if you're actually interested in deeper analysis of what the market is looking like and all of the trends that are going on, I actually have a newsletter that you can subscribe to with the first link in the description, where every 2 weeks I set out an edition of them that goes not only with what's trending and all of the big topics that is being talked about, my opinions on them, but also personal experience and a bit more of a behind the scene of work that I actually do. So feel free to check it out. And with that being said, I will see you in the next video.